Hello, everybody, and welcome to this, the fifth season of the Legends podcast with me, Sarah Faruya from Sarah Faruya Coaching. And this season is all about being very fucking creative. And today I am welcoming two of my dearest friends in Japan, and newly minted dear friends, by the way. Newly minted dear friends, who are two of the most creative people in this creative partnership together who I've ever met. And I absolutely love the way they move through their lives and how they do it. And I believe there are many, many ways to lead a life, and everybody has stories. And boy, oh boy, are we going to hear some stories today. Can't wait to get stuck into it.
How long have we known each other? I mean, this newly minted.
Maybe 2 years.
Yeah. Just
I think 2 years.
The pandemic kicked in, maybe.
Yeah, it was just before I moved house. 2.5 years, I want to say now. So, because I can remember talking to you about moving down here, because of course you live a couple of stops away from me, which seems a couple of stops seems quite close. But we actually live out in not in the sticks, but we don't live in Tokyo. So a couple of stops is a 2-hour walk, basically.
But we actually met you. I mean, you were about to change to get ready to go into the big playpen. Do you remember?
No.
It's the film on the set of Spoiled Identity.
Oh, okay. So we're saying the name.
Yeah, that's okay.
You were getting into your like Olivia Newton-John, like.
Oh, that's right.
Oh,
yes, and also in my role as Banana Flakes as well. Oh, it was so much fun dressing up.
So we met in costume, I think, the first time.
I think the first time we met in costume on set, yes, and then where we really had a good chat. Okay, so I'm featuring in their film. Actually, Duncan and my previous guest Yukiro are the writers and directors on this incredible cult, soon-to-be cult classic. And and fun fact, before I get into your bios, is that I had to be this drunken teacher kind of thing, and they gave me this bottle of like stuff to swig, and I thought it was filled with water, but it wasn't. It was filled with alcohol. And I went,
was it?
While the cameras were running, and it was like, oh, I showed you, and I was like, oh my god, it was really it was the middle of the day as well, so I was a bit alarmed by it.
Are you talking about the playground scene? Because you were brilliant in that.
I think I'm talking about the
speech, graduation scene.
Graduation scene, yeah.
Have you seen it by the in the playground where they come through the tunnel back into?
Oh, that was recent.
Was that water or was that alcohol?
Water this time.
Oh, yeah, I was saying you were really you're glugging it back. I think.
Yeah, no, water this time. Like that, I mean, by that point, I had to commit, and I'd only just met you as well, so I was making sure I knew all my lines and was really doing my best. And I was like, oh my god, that's alcohol, so I didn't want to make a fuss, and I just kind of kept swigging it. By which, after 3 swigs, I didn't care anymore. Right? I don't even like shochu.
I think you're brilliant. I think you're going to be, I mean, really brilliant in it, actually.
Oh,
really.
Yeah, but I edited the speech. It's great.
Oh, God. I mean, yeah, it was so much fun. I really super enjoyed that. So I want to get into my first question before I give you your rock star bios. So my first question is, tell me a story that's had some kind of influence or impact on you, either a story about the two of you or a story from fiction or something. Tell me a story. Everybody has stories.
Well, I was thinking about this, and we kind of had a real push to our creative projects about, I would say, like about 10 or 12 years ago. It basically kind of three things really fed into that. And one was we went to Berlin, and we had, most fantastic like summer in Berlin.
Amazing.
We stayed in an Airbnb, and we just had a wonderful time. And we just totally fell in love with the city. We were dancing, going to discos and just going to museums in the day and just walking around, and it was just absolutely gorgeous. And it just seemed like a very exciting, vibrant, kind of unjudgmental place, and a kind of like not as fashiony in a sense as like London or New York or LA.
More inclusive.
More inclusive.
Genuinely inclusive, as in like going to a bar and you're like a middle-aged straight couple next to like two young gay blokes, piercings and beards snogging each other next to. I mean, literally the kind of mix you wouldn't get anywhere else.
Yeah,
Not in Japan either.
yeah.
It was really liberating.
Not
in Japan, no.
no, very different, very different. So that was one thing, and then another thing was at that time I was sort of looking for something new to do, and I was thinking about various kinds of dance, and in the end I settled on Buto, going to Buto workshop, and I'd always been interested in Buto, but I decided to go to the Kazuo workshop in Hodogaya, near Yokohama.
Say who it is, because
basically, Buto is a kind of post-war Japanese contemporary dance and artistic movement, and there are two main figureheads. One is Kazuo Ono and one is Hijikata, and they evolved this incredible kind of grotesque, beautiful, spiritual, morbid, revolting, repulsive, beautiful, incredible kind of thing. And it was just very great because I met all kinds of very interesting people there, and who encouraged me to do whatever I wanted to do in terms creatively. And then at the same time, and also just one thing was that Kazuo Ono basically did his first public performance when he was 43. And at that time, I was kind of pushing 40. And so I was like, this was it was quite liberating. It was
very, very much
beautiful and 20 and blah, 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 blah. You can be
an old hag.
You're an old hag.
Well, darling, here's to being a bunch of old hags together, but fabulous, gorgeous ones.
So,
and constant rebirth.
Yes,
from the
yes. So
anyway.
that was the pre-climactic. And
I think Duncan came alive at that point when he started going to those shops, and then when he started doing performances. I mean, he'd been in a kind of, cocoon or like a chrysalis stage of not being fully realized. We had like a decade of being a bit flat, to be honest. Before the internet started and before all these things happened.
Before your blog started.
We were really kind of just a flat state, I would say. We're still doing creative things. We're still having, organising dance parties, and I was doing piano recitals, but it wasn't.
We hadn't quite found what we were looking for.
The day job was taking over too much, and it was just like.
So those were two things. And there was one more thing which was important, which happened at the same time, and that was I don't know if you remember. At that time, there was this sort of dance ban in Tokyo.
Yes,
did you know?
I do.
Crazy.
Yeah.
We couldn't believe it.
It was like
fascism had come back.
A kind of awful thing. It was almost like they were promoting out-of-town casinos, but then trying to sort of cut down and impose a kind of authority on places where there's live houses and discos and stuff like that. And so there was a kind of like a dance ban, which was really bizarre. So basically, I got involved with this anti-dance ban group. And through that, I met, a very great friend who is Tatiana Lee, who's the drag queen Tatiana Lee, and basically who at that time was just setting up the Closet Ball in Tokyo, which was a drag.
Oh, yes, you were at the first one.
Yeah, we were the first one.
We were there from the very first one. I love that idea.
And it's like a drag and burlesque and performance art cabaret, and he absolutely very open. It wasn't just drag queens. It was obviously a lot of drag queens, but it was anything you wanted.
Was that the one where you were naked?
Pretty much.
Not pretty much. No, I mean that 1920s surrealist one.
Yeah, well, I'd always wanted to do the dance of the seven veils backwards, and I thought this is my chance. So basically, and we both had this. We both found so many great friends who've since become such good friends of ours, like Yukiro, Skip. I mean, so many different people we discovered at that point. And so these three things really gave us this push. Just get out there and do it and stop faffing around, really,
It was almost like we were dead before, in a way.
In a kind of way.
We were not really, but kind of. I feel like everything's happened in the last,
things blossomed a lot, I think in those years, yeah.
When you say it was dead, Neil, what do you mean? That's kind of during your 30s. I also found my 30s a bit odd. I turned 30 and I felt very much like, what? What? And then I turned 40 and I was like, yes!
Yes.
I was basically born 40. That's what happened.
Yeah.
Not for everyone, unfortunately. I think if you're lucky, it can happen, or if you find the right impetus. I think some people do start to go downhill, but for us so far, it's been more uphill, which is really, really nice. I don't know.
But you started your blog.
And the Berlin trip?
The Berlin trip was one catalyst, because it was like, we can't just live we're not made for suburban boredom. We're just not. And we're not made for just getting a job and coming home and going to there. We're just not. We need to do something much more like the word creative is getting boring, but.
Yeah, I know.
Do you know creative?
Generative, or making things, or making things, or doing things, or producing something. And when I say producing, I mean
absolutely.
And actually getting out there, putting it out there. That's the key thing, isn't it? Because I think especially expressing something.
Yeah, I love it. I can see that you're very, very carefully trying to avoid any cliche, which I absolutely love. But I also love a good cliche as well. So because sometimes I actually enjoy playing the suburban housewife. It's almost like one of my roles. Oh, yeah. That's what I feel like.
I'm not a housewife, but I enjoy just standing and chopping the vegetables, and I feel there's a certain it's calming.
Yeah.
And having the dinner ready when my husband gets home because he has such a long commute. Even though I've been working all day too, I don't know. I find it quite. It's like role play, but not role play like Cosmopolitan magazine kind of role play.
That's one cliche I really can't do personally. I mean, we've been to these sort of like events, S&M thing. Right? There's nothing less sexy for me.
Oh, okay.
Then a leather outfit. It's like, no.
Not your bag at all.
Not for me, no, because it's too too preconceived and like cliche, like you said. It's like it's not kinky enough. Real kink is something more like a bit weird and personal, I think. Not not made in a factory.
Yeah.
And mass produced. I don't know.
So it's not a white, clean, naughty nurse's uniform for you. Oh, yeah. Okay. So we'll come on to this because we're kind of veering into your drag persona a little. So I would like to just take a break now and just quickly do your rock star bios, because I would like people to know a little bit about who you are. So we've got Neil Chapman here, who's a writer, the Black Narcissus blogger, and author of Perfume, In Search of Your Signature Scent. Ta-da! One of my favorite books. Look, I've marked it up. I love it so much. I've bought it for clients. I've bought it for people for their birthdays. I hope you're getting some money from this as well. You can tell me the best place to, and I will also be doing a giveaway after this as well. So if somebody comments on this podcast or asks a good question, I'll be giving one away. Not this one because it's got all my.
I've got the Chinese version if you need it.
Oh wow! Cool.
That came out like last year, didn't it?
Congratulations. Yeah. So the author of Perfume, In Search of Your Signature Scent, a witty and idiosyncratic introduction and guide to the world of perfume that has been translated into Italian and Chinese. Thank you for that amazing segue. Also known as Burning Bush, the elusive drag cabaret creature who legendarily cursed the night that never forgave.
That you said about
De Hoom, delicate delinquent known for his peculiar sensibilities and shape-shifting videography and art performances, combining buto and burlesque with black comedy and grand guignol. His work has appeared in drag cabaret and online video channels, Yokohama Theatre, Department H, and Performance Istanbul, and been featured in Elena Knox's 2020 Yokohama Triennial Prawn Porn. He also manifests as Leon Charm, a bio king, when the mood takes. Love that. All this terminology we may have to get into, but I'm not that interested. People can Google it. He is currently working on a grotesque comedy movie with Yukiro Dravarius and a motley bunch of performers. How dare you? From the Tokyo drag, fetish, art, poetry, and music scenes. Oh, and suburban housewife scene.
Thank you.
So that is my amazing guests today. So probably the best bio. All the bios are fantastic, but I love these so much. It's just so, and I want to say as well, like the things that the notes I was making as I was preparing for this, I was thinking about this book. I mean, you really must buy this book because the way that Neil writes, or read his book, blog, Black Narcissus, is the way Neil and Duncan both talk and write it's like something from a bygone age. It's like Shelley or Jane Austen or something. It's just so beautiful. And there's all these gorgeous, charming old words that don't get used very often anymore in there. And it harkens back to, I mean, I hope you aren't offended by this comparison as well, but I was thinking of kind of like the age of Nicky Haslam and the interior decorator. And we were talking about Quentin Crisp off camera earlier. And I know perhaps that's a little bit on the nose, but but that kind of this gorgeous florid language that you use to describe things, I just absolutely love it. And as I say, I've got this book marked up to the hilt, and so I just wanted to quickly do a quick reading of one of them. Here we go. I've chosen a shortie.
Some of them are quite long, aren't they?
Yeah, some of them are really long, and I love those as well. But I don't think anybody wants to listen to me doing that now. But this book is so exquisite, I think is the right word for it. I hate that I've got post-it notes all over it, but I've got another version that's not got post-it notes all over it as well. So look at these gorgeous illustrations as well. Oh my God, I'm sorry. If you're listening to this, you really must go and have a look at this on Amazon or on Neil's website and have a little look at the preview. It's the most beautiful book, Art Deco kind of thing on the front. So I think it's Art Deco. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes, because the original design that they were trying, it was kind of like a slightly David and Goliath type situation where I was the David and the publishing house was the Goliath. And there was a lot of battling going on. And I wasn't having this pastel yellow pink nonsense. I wanted something stark.
Yes.
Also, my mum had a perfume bottle like that, or has a perfume bottle like that. And I just really wanted to kind of surprise my parents by sending it in the mail and then getting this book, which is based on, 1920s Art Deco, which they love. And so me and the designers came up with that as a kind of, not compromise, but that's what we agreed on eventually. And I'm glad you like that cover. I'm all of it. I love all of it. I love the way it's laid out. I love the way you've got the graphic of each bottle in here. Because it's like, this is a really odd comparison, but like The Simpsons was drawn so that you could instantly see their silhouette. And I think that this perfect, like this Penhaligon's bottle here, I mean, it's so instantly recognizable to me. But what I love there is the fact that you weren't willing to compromise, which so many people would do if they were kind of pushing back. So that kind of... You've no idea.
Oh, sweetheart, I'm on executive committees and things like that. I know what it's like to try and push back to people who have more perceived power than you. It takes a lot of energy, a lot of resource, and a lot of resolve. And I really admire you for that, because this is absolutely exquisite. And you're absolutely right. If it was this kind of pastel-y pinky thing, it just wouldn't be the same.
In the original version, the bottles took up most of the page, and what I was writing was meant to be condensed down. They were going to cut it down by about 70%, and I had to fight to keep the balance. That balance of
this amount of words.
I wanted pictures, and that was one of the stipulations. But the fact you love the sort of small bottles is great, because that kind of
almost like a bullet point.
Yeah,
an annotation or a bit of punctuation, rather than being this kind of. I can understand why they want to do that, but this is something I find about both of you, and especially you, Neil, is this uncompromising way of being in the world. It's uncompromising, and I think that makes you irresistible.
It can make me difficult as well. Huh?
Yeah, it makes you an arsehole as well, but who cares? I'd rather be an authentic arsehole than a fawning, acceptable person.
After it came out, the editor and the main bigwig, she sent a card through, didn't she? Which was it was a gold card, and it had the words "fierce" on it. And I thought, well, in the end, she must have thought I was right, because she was really pleased and I was really pleased with it. So that was like a sort of way of saying, we forgive you in a way. Because
I love that.
In the end, and I've kept that as a sort of memento. It's worth fighting for it, because it comes up the way you want it to. So
love that. And there's always a chain of command in these things, right? So even if that person sitting between you and the person above them in the publishing world wants what you have, they have to then push back to the person above them or side by side to them, and everybody's just wants their bonus at the end of the day, right? But you want your creative integrity. So by you pushing them, by them being able to say the author refuses, it allows them to be more creative and more authentic and in integrity and genuine as well, Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Because I didn't, I'm not putting my name on a load of crap. So
I'm sure it would never have been a load of crap. But let me read this because I just love it. So this is Jacinth Jonquil.
Yeah, Jonquil, yeah.
Okay. Jacinth Jonquil by Prosody. Only by smelling the natural jonquil absolute, which is at the heart of this organic perfume, do we see how heady, almost dizzying these hypnotic flowers, narcissus, jasmine, and hyacinth in combination can be. With a note reminiscent of the jonquil extract used in vintage Vol de Nuit, Jacinth Jonquil is a bold, sensuous, contemporary floral with a putrescent twist.
That's so mean.
I mean, that's just like 10 lines.
You're already feeling sick. No,
Yeah.
That's enough for today.
Adjective.
Well, do you know, can I say something? Like,
Sure.
Advent calendars. I used to love Advent calendars as a kid. You used to open one little Advent calendar thing on the day, and there's a chocolate inside. I wanted it to be like something that you read on the toilet, or just like where you got 5 minutes.
Yes.
You just like, ooh, and you read like one little bit like that, and it's that'll do for today.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry because I read this in like 2 sittings, and I am the slowest of all the readers. I was entranced.
That is bulimia. That is like
that's yeah. It's actually ADHD, but hey.
But I wanted it to be intoxicating. So if it is like that, then I could.
For me, absolutely. And I mean, I've even annotated it here because it was so evocative for me. So here, what I've got a post-it note here next to Boudoir by Vivienne Westwood is, I owned it via Teresa. So my friend came to Japan and then she just goes, I don't want to carry this back with me. You have it. I mean, I'm a big fan of Vivienne Westwood as well, and her clothes and stuff like that. But then what have I written here? It says like boudoir is a powdery orange blossom strumpet of the very highest order. And I've got a post-it note here with strumpet written on it because that's the word I want to use more. It's a strumpety scent. So anyway, I love this book so much. Like, I mean, please let me honor you with that. In fact, I'm gonna order a rush of them.
You've made my day. Honestly, this makes me really, really happy.
Oh God, you got to be kidding me! It's so good. Were you one of the editors of this? Like, were you one of the pre-readers, Duncan, of this book?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we had the one summer where we were literally, it was like a full-time job. Neil would be writing. We get up, we'd work sometimes from like 9 a.m. to 1 p.m.
Just
all day. And Neil would be writing reviews, I'd be reading them as they were coming off, and suggesting edits and blah 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 blah. So that was a very intense.
This book would not happen without you. It would not.
Oh yes.
No. He was like quite strict. Take this out because we had to get rid of like 300,000. No, how much? 30,000 words.
We knocked it down to 120,000 words.
No, still. We're the same editor as Snoop Dogg and Mary. Is it Mary Bell? Is it?
Oh yeah.
So like. So this woman like edited like Snoop Dogg's book. I think it was a Snoop Dogg. He's
put out his cookbook. His
as you do
under he's the same publisher.
No, but the same editor.
Oh, was it the same editor?
Literally, she edited both, and she fortunately was pretty understanding. I mean, she sort of. I was fighting over a semicolon here and a colon there because I'm quite sort of.
Yeah, because it's rhythmic. The way you write is rhythmic. So you can imagine somebody reading it. Like, I feel like it needs to be read out loud. And I'm sure I did read it out loud. Like, the word strumpet begs to be said, right?
Yes. Well, Neil is like that. I mean, he's quite musical about sentences. So he says, oh, no, it needs another syllable. It needs another. He quickly
I can
recognize where. And because he writes very long. I mean, obviously short as well, but mainly quite long sentences.
I mean, one sentence could be 2 pages in my...
Which is kind of against the grain of contemporary style.
Yes, everything has to be like sentence. And I like to rebel against that and do it my own way.
I love that so much. It's so anti-zeitgeist. So antithetic to everything about social media and everything, which I think that we all use quite well. I love it just to kind of show things and keep in touch. We're all quite active on it, aren't we? But like that sense that it's like, no, you've got to be able to get it into a square and it's got to be a snappy something or other. It's like,
no.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so honestly, you're just seeing what it is, and I'm really happy because we've never actually talked about this before in person. You've been getting it for this date, maybe. You've never.
You would probably hate it.
No, I'm really happy because I see myself as being this kind of like slightly sort of I can't really say poetic, but I find it kind of unpoetic.
Oh, yes, 100%. It is poetic. Yes.
That isn't fashionable in the way, but I don't care. So I want it to be beautiful and something which kind of takes you into a different zone slightly. So you can just be away from sordid reality and be in this slightly, I wouldn't say fairy tale like, but like a slightly liminal space beyond the sort of humdrum bus stop kind of way of living. Like it's meant to be like, going into like a grove of bluebells by a stream and just like letting your sort of your mind float into this more beautiful space, which is like, an escape from all of that. That was my idea anyway. And they liked it, so that's why they signed me up for it.
Executed perfectly. And I love this idea of sordid reality and this liminal space that one lives in. I mean, I have to literally pull myself back out of that liminal space in order to not be in jail, pay my bills, pay my rent.
Oh, yes.
But that's why you're so happy and so positive.
Okay. Not all the time, but yeah.
No. But you're basically 100% positive, and you're about positivity.
To some degree, but my therapist will tell you different stories.
Of course. We'll have dark sides and our personal things, but what you present to the world is...
And it's absolutely right. That's my, yes. And there's also, of course, the shadow side that all of us have. But I think I would say that I live my life, and as you do as well, my life exists outside the bell curve, basically. So, the bell curve being like the average kind of stuff happening in the middle there. And I have to kind of force myself in there in order to live a daily life, which I'm sure you do with your day jobs, which we are not going to touch on today. Or I do when I'm sitting around the committee table of name a something or other. I can open my window at night, look at the moon setting behind that, and be transported into what you just described here, this liminal space, but also kind of live in a fantasy in the sordid reality as well. But I have a really, really dark side, exceptionally dark side. But I think that's what makes it interesting.
What do you think burning bushes and seeing him? I mean, we live in that grotesque space, and I think,
of course, you do.
What we do, the performance side goes more into the dark side, isn't it? It's almost like you can get rid of where you can kind of express it. It's like a sort of dark catharsis by performing these things. I mean, burning bushes is a kind of horror creature. Most of his things are pretty un-Disney, wouldn't you say?
Well, let me repeat back to you how Duncan described things. It's grotesque, beautiful, spiritual, morbid, incredible, beautiful. I mean, that's all of it, right?
Oh, yeah. Just about Buto. I was talking about Buto.
Yeah.
Right? So it was like something. It was it's liberating. I mean, I've always been into the grotesque anyway, but it was just good to have a kind of medium where anybody at any age could. It's a kind of dance, but it's art as well. But anybody at any age can start it. Can start when you're 80. It doesn't matter. It's not like traditional dance where you're
yes.
like finished by the time you're 30 type of thing. And in the sense that it values decay or very much as part of the process kind of thing. And of course, I mean, Kazuono was famously still performing when he was 102 in a wheelchair.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I think he passed away around that time. But he, he was very beautiful. I mean, very extraordinary, really. I mean, visually very extraordinary, and so was Hitchhiker as well. But yeah,
can I jump in as I always do?
Yeah, sure.
One thing about it though is, as is always the case, right? We quickly found that Buto had its limitations, as in it has these kind of rules and like ways of doing things, and also it was I think it was kind of part of that time, which isn't as relevant now. A lot of people are just jerking around the white face paint on and going through the motions, and we both got bored of it, to be honest.
Yeah,
Duncan wanted more than that. He wanted to take what he liked from it. Yeah, and then he wasn't just going around, being a Buto performer, which is fine. But you were sort of you took what you wanted and rejected what you didn't you? Which is kind of very us in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was right for that time. Yeah.
It was a conduit, like an opening for you. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
To access more grotesque and decay and beauty and spirit.
It sounds almost like a cliche, doesn't it? But when you've been going through stuff and you've always had the idols that you liked and the art you liked and the figures you liked, but then somehow it sort of really gave me a very interesting example of it being that of somebody performing in their old age and performing. It was like being manifested more. suddenly manifested much more.
I mean, because in the figure of Cazorno,
in the figure of Cazorno and Hitchcotter as well. Hitchcotter, I mean, they both passed away. Hitchcotter was really interesting as well. Cazorno was quite Catholic, actually, and he had this fixation with the Virgin Mary. We've
all been there.
But I mean, it was really interesting because he was a teacher in a private girls' school. But he used to be, bizarrely, in his 50s, he would be the Virgin Mary in the Nativity play that was performed at the school.
And the school was fine with that?
And the school was fine with it, yeah.
What kind of school is that?
Yeah, I mean, it's just really quite bizarre. It's quite interesting.
Can I say something? I mean, you're saying about the grotesque, but you're not saying why the grotesque is interesting. Like, what is interesting about the grotesque in itself? Because I'm thinking that everyone has that kind of murky id in the subconscious, but most people are afraid to sort of show it anyway.
Yeah.
Like, sort of filthing up their innards, if you know what I mean. And sometimes just to get the poison out by, like, everyone pretending everything it's nicey is living hell. And I think a lot of happens in this country, which is serves, it can drive you nuts. And so it can make you want to. Is the grotesque inherently interesting?
Well, I mean, I think it is, in a way, it's sort of taboo in many ways, isn't it? Because it's like,
what is taboo?
Grotesque, because, I mean, obviously, it's not like we're letting, corpses rot on the street as flies devour them. People obviously try to deal with death and by dealing with, dead bodies and stuff like that, What I mean is, like, it's almost like a slightly forbidden. It's something which is a little bit taboo. You don't want, it's a sort of locus of shame and kind of like rot and bad smell and stuff like that.
Well, it's so interesting you should say that, because I made a note earlier about valuing decay, and the interesting marriage of what perfume means in that context as well is like, perfume is like, some of them are quite grotesque sense, but like mostly it's about disguising. So that connection will stay to me. But I also feel like Japan does honor that in a way because of wabi-sabi and because of the value that's placed on lichen covered, like, it's not shiny porcelain kind of stuff. It's very much that decay is part of the beauty of stuff traditionally, not now, not the house that I live in, or like newness, but that kind of exists there. So there's two things in there, like the perfume element and also.
I agree.
And the best perfumes themselves, in my opinion. I mean, you mentioned Vol de Nuit earlier on, which I just happened to be wearing today, actually. I don't know why.
Shut up!
I really, I put it on earlier on. The best perfumes, in my opinion, contain a bit of, I mean, it's that sort of French, a peu de merde. A bit of shit needs to be in it, like a bit of rotting cheese. Like the balance between something a bit fungal and animalic and a bit dirty underneath everything, mixed beautifully with, like, other ingredients, can create, like, a slightly more erotic edge in a way, because things that just smell of laundry musk, that can be cute in its own way, but it's less it's not as ambiguous or mysterious or enigmatic, and something which has got multiple edges, like a real human being with a bit of dirt underneath. It's all put together masterfully. It can be really, like, a bit of dirt is quite good in a perfume.
I think also I agree with you about Japan, because I think Japan has obviously that's sort of two sides. And when you think of Japan, you either think of, like, hyper-modern, blah, 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 or you think, or there's obviously the other side, which is the Zen kind of side, but when you come to Japan, like, first time I came, I was struck by, God, actually, it's a lot more like almost 70s than you'd imagine. And it's buildings are often left to kind of slightly deteriorate, in their original in their original form. You see, whereas back in the UK, they would have been, like, painted up and done up and changed continually. You wouldn't really see that so much. So, I mean, I do think, like, the Shotengai and which is, I love that kind of whole thing.
Shotengai being
shopping streets, the 70s covered in shopping streets, all of that stuff, it is still here. I mean, I think it will go. It won't be here forever, but I think, like, it's still here and it's still very fascinating. It's like going back in time, really. It's like going back to 50 years ago. It's really,
what I'm talking about, sorry to change it, I'm talking about the emotional veneer and pattern that you have in this country, where everything has to be pleasant. I mean, in my workplace, in the schools I work for, it's almost like a written rule. You can't talk about politics. You can't talk about sex, which is fair enough. You can't mention anything. Basically, you can't be unpleasant, and you have to be nice all the time, which I think has a real value, because it means that
I agree.
They want to maintain harmony, and there's no aggro, and even people who hate each other are smiling at each other. It's all very nice, and
And there's less ego, I guess.
It's great. At the same time, it's unnatural for a human being to maintain that all the time. And I think that's leading into having
not maintained at home, and it's not maintained at home, and it's not maintained behind closed doors. Like, so that's it's like the dance of the 7 veils, right? You have like 7 veils, and then you pull one away for each intimate relationship that you have with people. But death is still very present. The first time I ever saw a dead body was in Japan, when I went to the funeral of my friend's wife, who had sadly taken her own life. And since then, I've seen many, and I've done the funeral rituals. I'm not sure if you're supposed to talk about them, but anyway, the passing of the bones and things like that. So it's very present in intimate life. And I think this is something that Japan gets right. Who knows what is good and what is bad, but this is how I like to always kind of go, well, what's the reason for that? I think when you've got that many people packed into the plains of Japan, surrounded by mountains or sea, and lots and lots and lots of natural disasters, earthquakes, tsunamis, landslides, etc., there has to be some portioning out of your nervous system energy, right? Just otherwise, you'd just be in the grip of things constantly, in constant anxiety. So if you've got this kind of set of rules in your workplace or on the train, or when you're out and about with people who are soto, outside of your intimate group, then this is what we do. We do that. We have one face. We have a certain set of ways to talk about things, and that makes things much easier and more relaxing. So that's the only way I can do. But then once you pull the veils back, veil by veil by veil, like, me and my husband are grotty together.
Yeah, sure.
And he and his family are, I mean, when I'm there, I don't know what it's like when I'm not, but when I'm there, I'm an extra veil, right? But like when I'm not there, I'm sure that they're, cordial, but I have no idea. I wouldn't be able to say that, but I get to say it. Dad farts in front of us, and they call mum and dad call each other baka, stupid and stuff like that. They get a bit gritty with grimy with each other. So I don't know. That's the way I kind of work through that. But it's present. I feel like that the rot is present. Somehow. And again,
I think I agree. We were talking about that the other day, exactly the same, maybe yesterday or the day before, about the whole funeral thing, about how to really do that better in a way than.
Well, England, it's like a muck funeral. 30-minute number, just like like priest looking at the watch. Who's next? I'm writing about it at the moment, actually.
It's like Eleanor Rigby, isn't it?
I find it.
Oh yes.
I really do prefer. I agree.
There's go on.
The body's never left alone from the very first moment. There's a wake from the second they're dead. There's the Buddhist sutras going on. They kept company until the actual funeral, and I feel like it's much more respectful to the person. It's more of like a proper show, really. Like the person gets their proper send out. Whereas in England, the ones I've been to have just been Church of England ones are really like just not enough, in my opinion. They're just rushing. Literally, I saw a priest at one of my grandparents' funerals, like looking at, I could see audibly speeding up, to get to the end of it. And I was like, no, I could see the next family waiting in the wings. It was just, no, I'm not getting any sort of sense of closure or physical or spiritual sort of
sanctity.
Yeah. It was just, so I think Japan did it really well. But on a day-to-day basis, it cannot be denied that it's very superficial in some ways. And
yes, well, it is.
I'm an extreme person, and I have to. I like intense emotions, so I think that helps with the performances and the writing, because I kind of get it all out in order to be able to stay sane in a very nicey situation. I have to have the other side. I just have to have it. That feeds into it, but it's like fuel to the fire in a way. And I am burning bush. It's like it can make me dark. It can make me more and more dark and terrifying.
Yeah, it's like
Burning bush is scary.
Yeah, she's something. Back to language, though. Just like what was that French phrase you said about merde?
Un peu de merde, s'il vous plaît. I think it was one of the famous perfumers. Might have been Edward Rudnitsky, Dearies, I'm not sure, but I think it was like just a little bit of shit, just to sort of finish it off.
Wow, so they've really got it going on there, because orgasms are also called le petit mort, like the little death, right? Yeah, so they're really going right in there with the grotesque. Isn't it amazing? What What happened to us English? I'm glad you two are holding up the kind of the English side of this.
The grunt.
I think perhaps by living over here, we're also able to be a bit.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm sure we'd be exactly the same wherever we were. But there you go.
Living here, able to be what? Sorry.
A bit more grotty. I think what the grot. A bit more. Yeah. We're allowed to push the boundaries out because we already live outside of the bell curve. We already live at the edges. But so a lot of the rules don't apply to us anyway.
Yeah, we are. We've chosen that rule, that route, you know. But in a way, but then you become like disenfranchised. You know, we can't vote in either country. We can't. We're not entitled to anything, which I strangely don't mind for some reason. I find it slightly liberating.
Well, it's just part of it's part of the bargain that we end. It's part of the contract we're in by living in this country. I mean, you can't have it all.
I agree.
Yeah, you can't have it all. That's like, you know, being a citizen here. It's interesting. So just out of interest, like, where did you guys grow up? And then I want to come back to the closet ball and that whole kind of queer community, and that also can set a little fire under the burning bush as well, perhaps. But just interesting to know. I'm interested to know a bit more about your background, where you grew up, how you met, how did you get into perfume, how did you get into dance, what did you study? Tell me a bit more about your background, whatever that means to you.
Well, I'm from Norwich, and I lived just in basically my house is in a village outside Norwich, and basically if I go to the bottom of our road, if I turn right, it's suburbia. If I turn left, it's just fields and countryside. So I'm right on the edge.
Really old church, it's beautiful church.
Yeah, I mean it's very it's a nice place to grow up in the sense that I could cycle into the countryside and I could easily find old buildings and churches and stuff like that.
Constable vibes.
Yeah, a bit. Yeah. You see, Suffolk is a little bit softer in terms of like slightly more rolling than Norfolk. Norfolk's quite harsh. It's quite flat, and it's just like a big sky and fields. You know, it's not everybody's cup of tea. So I was a 70s boy, and it was like small. I was. I mean, I wasn't. You know, I wasn't like I was in a small bungalow with my family, and I was always like looking for escape routes in the sense of reading books and, you know, cycling out, but going around by myself and stuff like that. But I did have like a nurturing environment because my next door neighbor was an artist. So I used to do sketches and stuff and take it to her, and she would, you know, that was really interesting. And then I also had like it was 70s, so my parents didn't have a telephone, so not until the 80s really. So we used to depend on like my next door neighbor so much.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So we used to depend on my next door neighbor, like so they would go into her house, you know, to make on Sunday evening to call family members and stuff like that. So we always called her Auntie Mary and
Auntie Telephone.
Yeah, we had all the aunties in the.
I'm Auntie Mary, by the way.
Are you?
I'm the auntie. I'm the auntie to all the kids.
Yeah.
You know, that goes like yourselves, no children. So like, yeah, I'm that like that weirdo who rocks up. Not weirdo, but you know, the one who's like, yeah, come round and paint with me. Auntie Sarah. Anyway, go ahead.
So I think I was sort of very studious, and at school, you know, I was sort of reading about history. I loved history and art history, and so I sort of went into that direction.
Were you a bit of a square or a boffin, would you say?
I was quite a boffin. Yeah, I was a boffin.
Love that word.
And but you know, I had a nice little group of people who I'm still in touch with, you know, on Facebook and stuff like that, but who were quite quirky.
Yeah.
And so I had that, and then sixth form was obviously more liberating, and then I took a year out, and then I went to university. Yeah, I studied literature.
You popped off to Tanzania before during.
I was 6 months in Tanzania. Yeah, teaching in a high school in Tanzania and a Roman Catholic seminary as well, which was interesting. I went very much in the art history, literature direction. Really, that was my thing. But at university, I used to like to do performance art as well. So I had my thing was the Speaking Pictures Society, which was like an exhibition of student artwork, and we also had like performances as well. My favorite one was throwing meat at three naked men in body paint, blue, green, and white body paint, and throwing.
Wow!
But I always got in a lot of trouble because it was also the yoga studio, and so people were like, "How dare you bring meat into the yoga?" Like,
oh God, yeah.
So
that was around the time I met you.
Yeah, that was when I.
Oh, Lady Gaga!
I don't think he's actually talking. I don't feel you've actually introduced anything about yourself by saying that.
Well, I mean, I think
he's being.
That's okay. You don't need to. I mean, this is all fascinating stuff to kind of trace a story, a history of somebody.
Well, but I could also tell. I mean, my mum is grandparents Greek Cypriot, and so they came to England in like just before the war, 1936, 1937, and so my mum grew up speaking Greek, and was born in England but grew up speaking Greek, and so I have that aspect. I have that side to me as well. Unfortunately, I don't speak Greek, which is a great shame. I wish I did, but so we always grew up with a lot of Greek food.
Oh wow!
You know, stuffed vegetables and kind of like, you know, sort of a lot of Greek stuff, and of course my grandparents always had Greek stuff as well. So I suppose I have that.
Is it outside
side? In a way, I guess. I think my mum was more of an outsider because she was growing up with Greek parents.
How about you, Neil? Do you want to, or you can interview Duncan on the things he's not filled in for us if you want to. But like
that was like a literal biography, not like an actual. Not saying anything about who he is. I thought. Sorry, I'm being.
Okay.
He'll get angry with me later.
Oh. Well, it's all good for me. I don't mind whatever emerges. And what we in systems coaching, we say the system will reveal itself. So whatever is revealed is what we three and the listeners need to hear. That's the way I think.
I mean, my background's quite similar kind of like socioeconomic status, you know, like suburbia, and I'm from Birmingham, Solihull. It's quite different, Solihull and Birmingham. I mean, I say Birmingham because I think it sounds cooler than Solihull, which is kind of meant to be posher.
I understand.
I'm kind of happy saying Birmingham. I don't know why. And then we met at university, so like 29 years ago. I saw him in the library.
Together forever.
I saw him in the university library, you know, because he was just in there, like talking to people and having coffee. And I saw him from afar and thought, wow, who is that weird skinhead over there? That's, you know, skinny skinhead. You're actually a skinhead at that point. You've got some, you know, like Sinead O'Connor or something.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys met at university, and
we actually met, as in talking for the first time, I think, at a ball, which sounds really posh, but it was like because Cambridge has these like end of term balls.
Oh, you were at Cambridge University.
Yeah,
the real one, not the poly.
He was doing English literature and I was doing Italian literature, and
amazing.
And we met at a ball, and we were like our female dates for the evening. But we kind of like Madonna's Vogue was playing at about 4 a.m. You know, as the sun was coming up by this tent, and we were there, like, you know, striking the pose, which is very, very, very original of us. But we kind of, that was like a sort of our partner saying, no, not now, you know.
Yeah.
You're with me tonight. But then we sort of seen each other, we ended up getting together.
And the rest is history. And when did you move to Japan?
Well, this is the thing, you see, because I mean, you were saying about stories. I think my biggest story would be that even though we were already together, when I was 25, I was not very happy in London. I was really just, you know, to jack it all in.
24?
25. 25. Point. I just didn't know what I was doing with my life at all. I mean,
what were you doing?
We were doing like temping and just saving up money to do English teaching. I mean, it wasn't really illustrious considering, you know, which university we'd been to. And I was kind of, we were both in kind of black holes to some extent, I would say.
Oh yeah, I hear you.
I was really lost and depressed, and I didn't know what I was doing. And I just, even though we were living,
you'd have pneumonia as well.
Well, this is the mess, to be honest. There's family stuff and just residual stuff from, you know, being in the closet for years and years and years. Which is that's my sort of integral, the most important psychological thing for me. I think being in a tunnel of repression for 10 years means that I have to express myself now. It's like, once you're out of the box, you can't go back in again. You know? So like, I have like never-ending stuff to talk about because, you know, someone like me being pressed into a space they're not meant to be in is quite damaging.
Oh no, it's awful. It's going to come out of your lungs. It's going to come out in muscle pain. It's going to come out of your knees. It's going to come out of
yeah. But you know, that's the price you pay. But so anyway, I just basically jacked everything in and told everyone I'm moving to Japan. I wasn't even interested in Japan, which is really no, it's really perverse. No one could believe it. You know, I was studying Italian and French, and I just said, "I'm really sorry, I'm going." So we sort of
because that was one of the options, really. And then it was all like either Japan or Korea or Brazil or
for me
Poland, like the options.
Oh, to do the ESL.
The ESL thing, yeah.
I looked at Spain as well.
Yes, Spain.
That would be nice, but we kind of took a break, and I came to Japan, and then eventually Duncan came, and then we started to, you know, build this new life, and it was fantastic. But it took a while to get there. So I think that kind of breach and everything just like my instincts told me, you have to get up here. It doesn't matter where it is. Go there and then see what happens. So I just followed my instincts. It was really like tearing in the fabric and just doing something very crazy in a way. Just to up and leave. But then we started to build our lives, and no, it's great. But it wasn't easy at first. How was it for you? Was it similar for you in a way?
There's similarities in our stories, but I'm just so interested in like the tearing the fabric thing there as well. It's like tearing the fabric, and I'm struck by the fact that Burning Bush doesn't have a hem on anything, right? There is no hem.
Burning Bush is a mess.
So Burning Bush, just as a reminder, is the drag alter ego of Neil. Or maybe Neil's the real world alter ego of Burning Bush.
True. That's a good way of looking at it.
Burning Bush, I mean, Duncan's like performances are very cerebral and surreal, also quite cathartic and sort of, what's the word? I mean, he's a really good dancer, I think.
They're kind of like, psychosexual in a way.
It's like magic what you do. I think what I do is more like emotionally like raw. Like Burning Bush. Burning Bush will sing a song which can bring a tear to the eye. Because I'm ultimately quite emotionally intense, and that's what I want to get across.
Emotionally raw and intense. And you're quite cerebral and sexy.
Oh, well, no, I wouldn't say so. It's like a psychosexual. So, I mean, like almost like it has an element of sexuality in the performance, which is also quite disturbing.
Shaman.
So, yeah.
We have like magic rituals and sort of strange.
He's quite ritualistic.
And he's very good at collecting young, beautiful people to be sort of like, male or female, to be sort of backing people. I mean, you are a bit of a sort of a mogul in that sense, aren't you? He goes around like collecting people.
Oh, I'm often collecting people, yeah.
Not in a sort of abusive way, in a very nice way. Like he picks. He's an absolutely brilliant casting agent.
We recruit. I always would.
He just happens to meet all these people. And he brings them into performances or into the film. So like the eventual film that you're in is going to be this fantastic tapestry of like
different people
that he's met through and with Yukira and brought into the fray type thing. It's gonna be really something. Like lonely.
It's like a black hole in the strange kind of way, isn't it?
Isn't it funny? Because it's so interesting you should be saying this, because like when Yukiro invited me, I was like, how is what? But then I was like, oh, he sees beyond the veils.
You were really good in it. You're really.
But like, how did he catch that? Like, so I interviewed him, and obviously, that something's kind of shining through, or
definitely, yeah.
I don't know if shining, but I don't mean shining. But what I mean is like the grotesque is leaking out. I don't think shining would be the right word. I think leaking. Something's leaking.
No, absolutely,
kindred. And something I'm struck by, and just talking to you now is, and you've said this to me before as well, is just how wonderful your relationship is. And I think this is not word for word, but like, I think that Neil said something to me like, something about conventional relationships or getting married or something like that. I just see so many unhappy people, and we're so happy. And so I have such a great relationship. And I just wondered if you wanted to say anything about that, because I see it and I just like, I'm literally fascinated by it.
Well, we're going to have an argument later, because he'll be in with the way. So look, you can see. Yeah. This will be saved for later. So it's not all like the rose garden all the time.
No, of course not. Nobody's is.
We're polar opposites. But the interesting point is, I would say, is that we have a very similar way of living in the sense that, like, we both live in this dream space, and we really encourage each other. So like on a weekend or a day off, it's like you wake up, read the paper with the cat there, have some coffee for a while, have a long breakfast, dance around the kitchen a bit maybe, and then where we are now, and then we sort of naturally drift into our own space. Like I'm writing, he's editing and writing, and we're doing whatever. And there's no sense of like, what are you doing? Wasting your day. That's what we both want to do. Do you know what I mean? So our sort of way of living is the same, but emotionally we're complete opposites. Yeah. So like that's a sort of magnet, I think.
I think that's a necessary factor, really, because I like that kind of spark. I'm always drawn to people who are quite fiery, and
he's not into wit squeaks.
Outrageous, And
I have really boring passive friends?
Thanks.
No. But you're saying like you're drawn to fiery people.
Well, I am.
What am I drawn to? Slugs.
Yeah, slugs. No, calm. Yeah, you're drawn to calm, really.
I don't come from a place of calm in my life, so therefore that's why I need this kind of refuge of someone who's Duncan really can't be that. I think Casey's like that for you, isn't he? Anyway.
To some degree.
That's my impression.
Yeah, to some degree. Yeah, to some degree. I mean, obviously, it's very easy for anybody to look at our two couples together and be like, okay, that's the Neil and that's the Casey, or that's the Duncan and that's the Neil. And I, even just earlier on when you were talking, I was like, I see a lot of similarities between you and I, Neil, in that way, in that kind of emotional intensity as well. But yeah, I think you've hit on something there, because I look at us and go, how is that even working? We've been together for almost 20 years now, right? So even just looking at us, it's like, how does that happen? It's like, I'm like a full head taller than him. And I love the word encourage, but the way that I interpret the word encourage between the two of you is, like when your mom used to say to me, don't encourage him.
Yeah, that is the bad point, actually.
No, but I like that. It's like, encourage him. Encourage him. Or
when you've got two decadent hedonists.
Yeah.
It's like, if we're out of, the junk shops, I think I need this, I think I need that, and then, but one person's not trying to stop the other one. It's like, the money gets spent, and it can be dangerous financially, or it can be, there's not one person saying, don't have another drink. It's like, you keep pouring it, because you're both similar. There's not one temperate person who's like trying to stop the other one. We both.
Okay, there ends the similarity. Because they would be like, stop it, you're too drunk.
we are like both, we want, like intense experiences, and so we kind of but each other in that direction, and what do you think?
Gorgeous. So talking of intense experiences, then I wanted to come back to talk about the Tokyo Closet Ball and how you said you'd found community there, and also your kind of not love hate, but your hate relationship with the word queer as well. So I just wanted to kind of come back to those two things, because I see that as a very kind of queer collective. But I'm really interested in the syntax of all of this and the feelings behind it.
Shall I start with my thing on the Q word?
Okay.
I mean, am I going to be cancelled for this? I don't know. I'm scared of cancellation.
Oh, are you?
Because, the word queer is the word which is used.
I don't know how many people listen to this that it's going to make any difference to you. but if you're uncomfortable with it...
No, I want to talk about it. I'm just saying that, I wonder what the reaction would be.
Well, this is your opinion.
Yeah. So I'm happy to be in a queer collective or part of that community, but I don't personally see myself as the Q word. I don't, probably because I grew up in quite a homophobic environment, a right-wing environment.
Yeah.
And
oh yes, Solihull's proper conservative, isn't it?
That word is being bandied about all the time as, as an insult. In the same way that the N word has been appropriated, but I haven't managed to appropriate it myself perfectly, I have to admit. Either because it's like, you can say it's internalized homophobia, but I don't like the sound of the word itself. The actual word isn't appealing to me. Like I was saying to you earlier on, if it was like, I don't know, bender, or even like one of those other insulting words that just sounds better to me. I just don't like the actual sound of the word queer. I don't know, that word Queer, it aesthetically doesn't appeal to me. And so I personally, even though like theoretically I understand what it includes all kinds of different people, different gender identities, etc. I'm still fine with gay. But gay is boring as well. I don't like that word either. I don't like any word for it.
Yeah.
In a way, it's no one's business. It's just like, I am what I am, and I don't need a label for anything, and I'm not. I don't know. But Duncan is more happy with that.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm quite happy to view myself and my performance as queer. I find it fine. I identify with it. I don't identify with gay as much. Because I find queer more inclusive of all different kinds of gender and different kinds of lifestyle and different.
Yeah.
So for me, I like it. So we have a difference.
But if I'm going to go into the real nitty gritty, if I may, the biggest difference between us two is, I would say, if I'm allowed to say this, is that I was, in the closet from like the age of, say, 7 or 8, like George Michael in that kind of tortured kind of Andy Warhol kind of way. Sensitive little Christian little boy, terrified and in the closet and being, hearing all this violent language around me all the time. Duncan, from what I understand, was a lot more like untroubled through his like childhood, and then gradually sort of blossomed into his sexuality around the sort of university stage. So he doesn't have that kind of trauma at the center of his existence that I do, I don't think. And
no.
I am based on trauma in a way. which I mean, and from that I write beautiful things, or I try to get it out with, or I try to get it out with like dark performances or whatever. I think that's one key difference between us.
Definitely.
Like, Duncan's got like a more untroubled backdrop. I'm not saying that he doesn't go his own trouble.
No.
But you see what I mean? It's a very
different emotional trajectory. Very different.
Oh my god! So the whole like the Q word thing is connected to that as well. I think because I'm coming from a different place with it, so I can't just like I'm this. I just don't. I can't. It's just not easy for me.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
That's beautifully put, actually, Neil. I really appreciate you articulating that in a way. It reminds me of, I was talking to my brother-in-law, my brother's husband. He was talking similarly, like say, my brother told us that he was with his husband when he was 41. Okay.
Oh,
yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So there's a conversation we'll have offline sometime. But what my brother's husband said to me was like, he said, Sarah, you have to remember this. I came out of the womb like this. Hey! I'm just kind of, obviously in Japan, it's a bit different because there's so many ways to be tacitly who you are, right?
Yes.
So, like you've probably worked, I don't know if you've ever worked with any salarymen before, but, there's the salaryman and then every now and then you'll see the undercut.
Oh,
they're in a punk band on the weekend.
Yeah, I'm sure, yes.
But they don't have to live that every day. There's that kind of switch. And I think that's why my brother-in-law moved to the UK. But it just kind of reminds me of that a little bit, that kind of absolute comfort and knowledge that he had from the start. So it's not the same, but understood. Untroubled backdrop. That's really interesting. I don't know if you've got anything to add to that, Duncan. Yeah. It's very
minimizing in a way, isn't it? Like, Duncan's untroubled, got no problem. But I mean, just coming from.
Oh no!
Yes. No,
that's not what I'm
my words might minimize him and make him actually.
That's not what I'm hearing at all.
Really?
No. I think, and obviously the way our families process emotion is just totally different, isn't it? I mean, Neil's family is a lot more volcanic and volatile. Everything is just there, whereas my family kind of more private in that way, I guess. There is emotion, and my mum is quite emotional person, but it's handled in a very, very different way, I think. And so that has given Neil a kind of like, fight or flight trauma,
right, and that's what trauma is.
Thing. Whereas I think for me, I'm a kind of person who, when I was growing up, I did in a sense feel different, I think, to a lot of the kids at school, because my interests were quite different. I was quiet and studious, and I was reading, books about history and art history and stuff like that. And I didn't have that many people I had much in common with. But I was very much in love with the things I loved, and that gave me a lot of inspiration. And I think I developed this kind of like walled off guard. It's almost like I'm in a walled garden with this kind of calm, which gives me a lot of distance, I think.
Honestly, it's like you're in like a down in even now he just retreats into his vault. He's got these like thick,
which is protective. I think is a very protective thing.
We call it boundaries in coaching, and they're very useful.
Yeah,
you've got no boundaries. It's just
yes.
I'm just a porous sponge, and everything osmoses in and out, and I've got no protection against it. And all I can do is process it. So like, whereas Duncan can literally just be. Sometimes he's so spaced out. It's like. Duncan, it takes. No, I'm not.
But I was even worse when I was growing up. I mean, my parents were like.
It's like a minute later. Whoa! Oh.
Yeah. And we're always like Duncan.
It's going this slowly towards your.
Yeah, I mean,
penetrating the
very. I remember my mum always said I was like an absent-minded professor when I was, teenager.
He's not listening. He's inside his own little dungeon.
Inside my thing. Yeah.
He can just close off.
So tell us more about the closet ball then. Thank you for telling us about that kind of repulsion to these labels that were insults for you. When I use the word queer, I use it with the Q word, if you like. I use it with a small q to describe people who live outside the bell curve. People who live their lives in many different versions and ways. Yeah. Outside polite society, if you like. But and also sometimes inside it, but so very, very.
I mean, I didn't even want to be Burning Bush. Duncan is a big instigator in my life. He's the one that pushed me to start writing a blog. Because I had like
I set it up?
Yeah.
For you.
Because I had
you're like his manager, kind of.
Well, I had a literary agent, and I was signed up with a literary agent in London, and I put forward my book idea at that time, but I had zero online presence. No one knew who I was. So So I had to start going online, and then through writing, like the publishing deal and everything. And the same thing happened with the Closet Ball. We started hanging out with these people, and we loved it straight away. And then Duncan said, "You should do it." One day we were standing at the bus stop, and he said, "I think you should do it." I'm like, "Well, no, I don't think so." You can play and sing. Why not do it? And so, first I said, "How about doing something called Bait Kush?" Because I love Kate Bush. And so, no, Burning Bush. Burning Bush. Oh my God! Because Burning Bush has so many possible meanings. Yeah. And then that was one on my birthday. Whenever it was that year, and it was completely I cannot tell you how. I mean, I don't even know what it means for me yet, but I felt just exploded into the stars, and I was part of the ether after that. It really was an incredibly important moment for me.
And I mean, a lot of close friends, for example, Die Schwarze Frau, Yukiko, and also Michael, who's Belgium Solanas, absolutely embraced absolutely loved Burning Bush, and were always, oh God, this is just come out fully formed. It was it's an it. Yeah, it's an it. It's a drag creature.
Drag creature. As you heard, Duncan was he was there from the very first Closet Ball, and it could not have felt more naturally doing that. It was just I was taken into a magic zone. But honestly, it was it was uncanny.
Yeah, it really clicked.
It was like a silent movie.
That was
it was so weird.
It was something which I always wanted. I always had this image of like I said, the Dance of Seven Veils backwards, and I thought that's to me that's more like life, isn't it? Like you're born naked and then you just get all these veils put on you, type of thing. I just had this idea of these assistants firing guns and me running across the stage and just putting a layer on, and then running across the stage and putting a layer on, and it was like this rapid fire thing combined with a silent movie, and with intertitles which they brought on and stuff like that, and I ended up I involved Tatiana, who was the head on the platter. We snogged, and then I basically stitched her head back on. So it was
that was really funny.
But it was the title was it was ridiculous because the title was something like Tatiana gives head, basically. So always lots of different elements came together, and so I ended up with her lap, her with her head in my lap on stage and me stitching.
Disgusting.
But everybody really loved it, and so I was like,
since then he
they did. It's amazing.
I mean, the second one thing finished, he's already thinking about the next one.
Already tomorrow I've got something coming up. I've got.
He's always doing something now.
It's amazing, and I like the way you just report that as well. You just report that as if, I've listened to a million different business people telling me their their strategies. You just tell me that so it's I was running across the stage and somebody was firing a gun and then their head was in my lap. And and that's my quarterly report. Thank you. And I'm like, what?
A normal day.
Yeah.
Yes, well, it is a normal day. And I want to work in your office. Absolutely terrific.
I was going to say about about Closet Ball, because I think
hats off to Taylor.
Hats off to Taylor, because he's kept it going for so many years, and it's been really influential actually because of that. Other people have started similar sort of cabarets.
Yeah,
his person is Tatiana Lee, and totally open to all different kinds of acts. So there's burlesque, there's comedy, there's stand-up comedy, there's performance art, there's music, there's drag.
Yeah. And it's open to any shape, body size, gender. I mean, there's
absolutely.
Sometimes it's mainly biological females. It's wow.
Yeah, bio queen. So bio queen is
and he'll let a new person. But it also sounds like regular women, anyone doing it. Any body shape. There's no body fascism. It's
very, very open, and that's been a real great strength. Sometimes it's a mess, but the mess is the strength as well.
Today someone's doing their first performance. Good. Well done, love. That was quite nice, but at the same time, it's very fresh because it's not like. I mean, I love
keeps
RuPaul,
it fresh, yeah.
But RuPaul and Drag Race, etc. But it's all perfect. It can just be anything. Anyone can do it.
Yeah, I think that's really helped. I mean, I would literally say that Taylor has really opened a lot of different scenes to each other. So, for example, he's involved in the theatre scene.
That's true, actually.
And also the comedy scene and the drag scene. So he works for volunteers for Yokohama Theatre. and he also does stand-up comedy sometimes, and obviously drag. So that automatically has brought loads of people in, and you just meet nice people,
interesting community,
and you do nice things, and you don't give a shit because
I still give a shit. The other one thing I wanted to mention about Burning Bush and wanted to ask you about, Neil, is one of the performances I watched, you were singing the most beautiful song and playing the most beautiful piano. And it gave me some cognitive dissonance because Burning Bush is so grotesque. So I'd expect her to be like, something like that. But actually, no, you sit down and do this beautiful kind of piano performance. I love cognitive dissonance. Of course. And if you were just sitting there in a suit playing the piano, that's one thing, that's perfectly viable. But the fact that this grotesque drag creature doing this kind of beautiful melodic, piano performance with voice as well was so wild to me. Tell me more about that. Tell me more about your piano playing as well.
Well, I mean, I should have to just go to
the We'll wrap up soon. Don't worry. We're already over.
I have a musician friend called Julianne who's brilliant. He's got a deal with Universal Music now. But she was doing a PhD in music theory. And one of her projects was about people who need a stage persona in order to be able to properly perform.
Interesting.
And she was interested in the psychodynamics of how a person feels just as themselves, like you were saying, the man in the suit, and how it changes when you put in the costume. And it definitely, for me, I think people don't want to see a man in the suit. They don't want to see me.
Well, not at the closet ball.
No, honestly, the difference between what I found is that just 2 minutes, just shove on a wig, shove on whatever you're wearing, a bit of grease paint, like Robert Smith makeup, and people's perception of you is so changed that you can actually, it's do
what you want.
It's really transforming, and it allows you to explore different identities. And so, like you say, I can play the piano. When I was a kid, that was kind of what was possibly going to be in the future. He's going to be a musician. I was playing the piano and the flute, but I'm not good enough. Really, I wasn't committed enough, and I didn't have the actual ability to become a professional. So but I can still play.
Yeah.
And like you say, I like that kind of slightly squares playing Bach, but at the same time, it's dressed like that.
Yeah.
It's not what people expect from someone at a drag performance. So I like that kind of, like you say, it is cognitive dissonance in a way. It's unexpected. Isn't it?
Love it. Yeah, I mean, I'm putting mine there. I mean, this is Elton John or Liberace, who have those personas that they put on. No, I'm not comparing. Please believe me. I don't think you like those, but they both had this costume, right, that allowed them to.
I think Stephanie German, not to turn into Lady Gaga, but I mean, obviously,
and her too.
I think she's a sort of depressive, sensitive, multifaceted person, and then she turns into this ridiculous person.
Or even Sia. Sia, the artist.
She's hiding away.
She's hiding, but it allows her to be.
That's true.
All that stuff.
That's true. But with Sia, isn't it more a question of she doesn't like how she looks?
I don't think so. No, I think she doesn't like the idea of being. It's something to do with allowing the music to be it without her having to be it. Something like that. It's what I read anyway. Something like that. But it also, I suppose, it allows, because I know I've done workshops with masks and stuff like that, and I made a mask and it was really grotesque. Oh, so to allow this persona to come through.
What's it like?
So my mask is really grim. I wasn't expecting it to be, and I think people were probably expecting it to be all sparkles and but it's really, really, it's got skulls on it, and it's downstairs. I'll take a photograph of it and show it to you. But the persona that came out was this absolute bastard called the Don, like that. When I was wearing the mask, and I was like, oh, bollocks. I was hoping for something nice. But actually, I just wanted. But then from then on, I was like, okay, then on the Tony Soprano of Tokyo, fine. If that's who I am, then that's the way I'm going to try and influence, get myself into this company here, that company there, and just see what this committee here, this thing here. Yeah. So the Don led me to something else. I walk amongst them.
What was the result of the meeting? you having been in a mask, like, what happened? How did it change things?
Well, I wasn't leading that workshop. I was a participant, but it just brought through this persona, this really like in charge, commanding, boss-like, rude, in your face persona. Like it brought out like some proper Liverpool kind of stuff that I keep down so much because I'm a lot like you, Neil, and I have a lot of intense emotions about things. But like I add to that being a visibly woman-y woman in the world, and there's a lot of things that just need to be done to.
How did you feel after you'd done that and you took the mask off?
Bit ashamed.
Did you?
Oh yeah.
Why?
Oh, liberated. Good question. Liberated. I was liberated, but I was also like, well, I'm a coach, right? So I'm looking at things with curiosity all the time. Like, what's that part of myself that I'm keeping down in daily life, which is probably making me sick or, you know, giving me backache or neck ache or whatever it is that like I'm trying to hold down. And it was just that acknowledgement of that super, I don't even know if I call it shadow side, but that boss side, that real boss side. So I felt a bit ashamed, a bit sad, because what I really wanted was somebody nice to come through so everybody could see how, even though I look like a bit of a bastard up front, I'm actually really nice. But like, you know, none of that was true. That's how people aren't thinking about you that much ever.
Yeah.
And
that's funny.
Yeah, so there you go. So if it didn't take so much of my kind of energetic social energy, I'd love to get more involved in this kind of stuff. I think, you know, more of the id to come out in the ego. So that's why I loved being in your film.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll have to think of some more roles for you.
Really loved that. Loved just that. And just being around that whole scenario was so great. But I also, you know, my goal in life is basically just to sit in my window looking at flowers and being in that liminal space that you described earlier.
Yeah.
So tell me about the film then. How did that come about? And like let's kind of close out because we're getting close to we're getting well over time. But tell me about your film. What and when's it going to be coming out?
It's a comedy called Spoiled Identity, and we're like, I would say 96% filmed. And about 80% edited in a preliminary way. So we're hoping like maybe summer or autumn we would show it, basically. And we'll do like a showing, you know, initially just a free showing for all the participants and everything. And so it's quite nuts. Yeah, it's very
incomprehensible.
We've still got quite a lot of work to do, but we're both getting probably back into it, because it was a little bit, you know, it was hard during the pandemic we hadn't finished.
You lose momentum, don't you?
You lose momentum, yeah. So basically, it's only in the last month or so that we've really got back into it.
You talk about it's called Spoiled Identity.
It's called Spoiled Identity,
and it's playing. It's like opposing ideological camps, like PC, non-PC, and like,
it's opposing dogma.
It's making fun of a whole lot of things which need to be made fun of.
I think it's sort of like two rival factions in a school. But I won't give too much away. But it's two rival factions in a school.
It's very irreverent.
Coming to a final there's something about the two factions that neither of the factions know, which is kind of revealed at the end. But it's quite irreverent. And
it's really irreverent.
It's a little bit to do with different ways of living, obviously, and to do with Japan and foreign people in Japan as well. It's to do with that kind of all kinds of different things. Yeah, but it's like
it's hilarious. I mean,
old school.
Him and Yukiri together write the most. I mean, your bit's absolutely hilarious. I'm pissing myself watching it. To be honest, it's really funny. Is that my sister coming in the cloaca? Yes, that's anyone in Lancashire than Liverpool.
My favourite thing was watching my husband has a little cameo in it.
Oh, he was great. He's great. Yeah.
He's brilliant.
That works a treat.
I mean, wearing that train cap.
I know.
So magic, serious.
It's very. But the problem is, it's funny. It's hilarious. So no one's going to hear anything because they'll be laughing all the way through it.
Yeah.
Well, we shall look forward to that. And is there any hints of a new Perfume book coming out? Are you in the throes of writing another book, or are you focused on the blog? And
I've written for like Japan Vogue like a few times, which is quite exciting. And I'm continuing with my next book is about Japan. So like the Perfume one was a kind of prelude, I want this next book to be a lot more like scandalous, shocking, quite more emotive and more personal. And
it's a memoir, isn't it?
It's my memoir of my time in Japan. It's also about Chad. It's about all kinds of stuff. Well, it's about all kinds of things. I think it's about. I thought it was going to be about just Japan initially, but it's a kind of problematic area. A white man sits and pontificates about Japanese society. So I think it's better to do it more like from a personal.
Not just problematic; it's also a bit boring. Go into any British pub and eavesdrop. Do you know what I mean? Like any British pub in Japan and eavesdrop.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
But what we've been talking about today, all the closet wall, and I mean, the word coming out irritates me for a million reasons.
I know.
But in a way, it has been like a coming out the last few years, like a creative coming out. And I want that to be the kind of focus of the book, like moving towards the sort of underground closet wall scene in Tokyo. So that's the book I've started writing.
Mm-hmm.
So
emerging is another word that one can use instead of coming out. Like, so all this new energy is emerging and this new being revealed and so on. I think
it'll ultimately be a positive, very positive book, but I'm not going to shy away from talking about the dark stuff either.
No, absolutely not. And I actually really enjoy the way that you talk about that. It doesn't gall me in the same way that it would somebody else, because there's a deep authenticity about the way you write. You're not trying to sugarcoat anything for anybody. And absolutely. So when I see you complaining about something online or something like that, I know it's you processing it through your written words. I know that you've thought about it as well. It's not just some cliched vomit of Japan is so X, Y, and Z, and it's quite specific to you, the stuff that you complain about. And you're aware of that. And then, people can join the pile-on if they want to. But the only reason I don't is because I find the stuff that happens in between more interesting. Like, why is that? What's the reason for that? So, yeah. So I close out with this question for everybody. There are many ways to lead a life. I feel like this whole podcast has been like that. There are many ways to lead a life. What does that mean to you?
Well, when I read that quote of yours, I really I clapped, because that encapsulates how I feel as well. I mean, when I'm teaching, for example, the one thing I do like about teaching is the fact that I can encourage people to be their individual selves and to think in different ways.
Yeah.
Little quote, there are many ways to lead a life. It means a lot to me. I think that's the ultimate wisdom in this world, is to accept that as a reality and not try to impose some kind of oppressive stricture on anybody. And so I would say, bravo to that way of thinking. Also, in terms of identities, I'm Neil Chapman, I'm Mr. Chapman at work. I'm Black Narcissus when I'm being in my poetic mode, and then I'm Burning Bush as well. And even one person within those ways of living lives can have different. I mean, it can seem schizoid, but I don't think it necessarily. It's just different ways of expressing yourself, and I think the more of that, the better, basically.
I don't think that's schizoid at all. I think what brings it, not at all, because when you bring it to mind as a woman, we have to go through loads of different identities just in the normal bandwidth of life. So I've been Sarah Everett, and now I'm Sarah Furuya. So anyway, but I love the idea that we can have lots of different identities where we want to. And spoiled identities. So let's move over to the direction of spoiled identity. There are many ways.
I was thinking along exactly the same lines of be yourself, but also you have multiple selves and multiple identities, and there isn't just one. So, and for me, that's a metaphor for diversity and healthy society, which is a diverse society. It's not like, as we see now, some dreadful moronic toddler authoritarianism, creeping back in, putting one stamp on people and society, and how that is not healthy. It's not healthy living. And so, I think diversity is the way to go.
I agree. It's such a loaded gun that I mean, because I moved through the middle of the bell curve, a lot of my business is through there, but I'm trying to make things more. And I think that you've just hit on something here, which is diversity equals a healthy society across the board. And that is
absolutely.
Not everyone feels that, do they?
Pardon me?
Not everybody feels that.
No, absolutely not.
It's true. It's an ongoing, it's an ongoing battle and issue.
But like I said earlier, once you've exploded out the box, you can't be put back in again. It's the same with civil rights. It's the same with any kind of like emerging and like not expressing. You can't be. It's physically impossible to press it back into the box. It's like, so I think
there's sort of self-determination. I mean, self-determination.
No, but it takes a lot of it. It takes a lot of energy. I think that self-determination and that kind of constantly having to kind of educate. I mean, here's how far into the bell curve I go. Like having curly hair goes against me sometimes.
What do you mean?
Oh, well, because if I had straight blonde hair like that, I would be taken more seriously in the world.
Fuck that. That's
absolutely fuck that, because let the racism of that just settle in, right?
Yeah, I love your hair. I want it.
Yeah, I mean, but like, because I've even had like at least 2 clients who are in high level positions, women, say to me, oh, if I started my own business, I could stop straightening my hair. And I was like, what?
Oh, God.
And they said, no, genuinely, I would be taken less seriously if I came in with wild curly hair. And I was like,
oh, my God.
Wow, that's how deep. And they were white women. That's how deep the one wish to homogenize ethnicity goes. That's not in Japan. That's in American companies, by the way. So, I mean, a surprise. America's a little bit racist. But, oh my God, I'm going to get cancelled. Bring it on. Anyway, but so there you go. That's why I think it's so important to say there's many ways to lead a life, because it's a healthy thing. It's healthy for people. And so there you go. Love it. Gentlemen, thank you so, gentle grotesques. Thank you so much. What an amazing conversation we've had. It's gone on for so long. I'm just here to have really interesting conversations with people and talk to people who are legends. And I take legend to be the myth or the legend, where we tell these stories and they may or not, these fantastical stories, and they may or may not be true.
How is it true?
I know they're all true, but in a retelling, it could be told. That's the legend. That's the legend. And you guys are absolute legends of the closet ball scene here and everything. I think so. To me, you're absolutely legendary. Utterly legendary. Wow. Utterly.
Thank you for having us.
So where can we find you? I have here that Neil is at theblacknarcissus.com or at Perfume by Neil Chapman.
The Black Narcissus is my sort of, it's like almost a diary through the portal of perfume. So I'm like, I'm reviewing new perfumes, vintage perfumes, just things to do with smell and connecting that with politics and everyday life. And I can't stop doing it. I wake up in the morning, I have to rush to the computer. I mean, I absolutely adore it. 100%. It's my life's work. I love the Black Narcissus. And the book it's in Kinokuniya in Tokyo. Yeah, in Shinjuku. You can actually, I was like, oh my God, my book's here. It's in Harrods. It's in, I think it's in most Waterstones in the UK. Yes. And it's on, you can get it online.
Where's the best place for us to buy this? I mean, I'm happy to buy from Amazon because it supports people's books.
Probably the easiest.
I think so.
But most physically buy in going to Shinjuku and going and buying bookstores. Yeah, I love it.
There's something about that, isn't there?
I really enjoyed the experience of doing it. I mean, it was an intense experience, but it was. I
mean, it's phenomenal. I can't even imagine.
You know what though? Like when it arrived in the post, right? We didn't know. I didn't know that it had this gold. The pages were registered in gold because all I'd seen was like a flat. Illustration, and it
did a good job.
And like, we just sat like, oh my god!
Oh, it's a work of art.
My parents went to bed with it when they first got it. They were so excited. They were really, 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 really pleased.
Here's another funny thing. One of my coaching groups, my closed coaching groups, I had about 18 people in there who were all in a 1-year program with me. And somebody was talking about how they just bought themselves some new perfume and how they were loving, it was an upgrade month, and how they were loving upgrading their perfume. And 2 of us secretly sent her this book in the post.
Wow.
So she received 2 copies of it. Isn't that funny? And then she was able to hand on one of the copies, which was such a hilarious exchange. So, because my other friend Sarah Bull has purchased this and she loves it as well.
Oh, it's really nice.
Absolutely loves it, and she sent it to her mum, and it gets that kind of momentum going.
Yeah,
and Duncan, where can we find you? I can't believe I'm just sitting here going, I've got a published author and a soon to be a launched director, writer and director of a cult movie on my hands.
A lot of my shorts, and will be spoiled identity too, but on my Vimeo channel,
which is
Dihun. Yeah.
Yes, WHOM, and at Dihun.
Yeah.
So that's amazing, and I strongly encourage you to go over and look at his videos. They are absolutely enchanting and wild and bonkers.
That one film there where you are by the ghost tunnel. I love that one. Bernie Bush.
Ghost tunnel. Yeah.
That was good, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like so good. And I also love the one in Kuru Kuru, which is our local that you introduced me to, and now I have all this weird glassware downstairs.
They have such good stuff and so cheap. I love that place.
Kuru Kuru, they're so nice.
Don't you love that place? I absolutely.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just like a swamp when it's raining.
Yeah, well,
you don't want to be in there in an earthquake. It's full of it's just mosquitoes.
It's really old-fashioned chaos. But
we're in heaven.
We turned up that day. It was such a good synchronicity. We turned up
the last time I went in, I got this.
Oh, wow!
Your nail polish. It's a really nice color. It's in brilliant condition. 300 yen.
What's the name of it?
Oh, well, that's cool.
Color.
Sienna.
Really
nice. Cool.
Yeah, they're not greedy at all, and they're very friendly. And when I was walking around like Ghost Gear, and he was filming it, like there were customers in there, just like.
And the flute guy, flute guy was there playing the flute just by chance.
Shut the front door! I thought you'd taken him in.
No, he was there.
I was like, Duncan. Oh yeah, hello.
It was such good timing. We were like, oh my god,
can you believe that?
Oh, I'm so glad we went on that day. And then we also found the people with the gong.
We got them as well.
We got them, and
I think Japan is going against what we said earlier on about being stiff, and there's also very like a deep understanding,
participatory somehow.
Yeah, of like a respect for the artistic, and also for.
Oh yes, I had a friend who was a graphic designer who said that. She said she loves Japan because art is just part of everyday life. Yes. Everybody has that sensibility somehow.
Yes, part of everyday life. I like that. Yeah.
Deep down, they know that everyone's got their own weird, quirky sides, and I think that when you're away from this superficial, everyday office situation, that's why subcultures can flourish, and that you can wear what the hell you like, and no one's ever going to say anything.
Yes,
Burning Bush and Diem have never experienced a single I've never had. It's always been what's some more. Great. We've never experienced any. No one's beaten this up. No one's said it.
None of that aggression. None of that aggression.
We can float through Tokyo, and all we get is positive responses. You would not get that in a European or an American.
No.
You would at some point. You'd reach.
Maybe in Berlin, but even then, you might come across.
Neo-Nazis are always hanging around in the background in Berlin, but
anywhere in Europe.
In Japan, it's just extreme.
And I think we are lucky to be in Kamakura, Zushi, Hayama. This area, Kotsubo, this area.
Nobody gives a
lovely.
shit.
Nobody gives a shit. No.
Nobody gives a shit because they live in paradise.
Yeah. Exactly. Civilized.
You know what I mean? Who cares?
Yeah.
I've got my surfboard under my arm and I've got my wetsuit hanging up on the balcony. I don't care.
Yeah, true.
Yes, got better things to think about.
I agree.
Yeah. So yes, we live in one of the most sacred towns in the world, probably, don't we? It's very Kamakura's Kyoto.
Yeah.
Or
Kyoto on sea, isn't it? Really?
Kyoto. Yeah, it is in Kyoto on sea. You brightened.
Zen resort.
It's a Zen resort.
What you were saying about it's so freaky because you can come. It's almost like Baywatch up in the summer. Shibuya comes down.
I even love that.
Oh, I love that. Yeah,
I wasn't expecting to last year when the beach huts all came up and everybody's there in their bikinis, me included, with my big fat Pillsbury body. I don't care. I still feel sexy and juicy. So all the beach huts are out and everybody's got their floaties and there's all the umbrellas and you rent a sunbed. I went onto the beach the other day and I was like, sunbed, 1,500 yen? Yes, I'll have 2 and 2 umbrellas, please. It's just
5 minutes where you've got sacred Buddhas and it's a really interesting combination. I think
a really interesting combination.
Yeah.
I mean, you're a little bit more inland than me, I think, but Oh, and I went for, just out of interest, I went for a hike recently that starts in Higashizushi. There's a Buddha, like, I don't know how many meters high, 20 meters high, carved into the stone, into an old quarry.
I've been there.
Oh, never been. No.
What's it like?
Oh, wow.
Amazing.
We should go there.
It's a gentle hike. I mean, you have to pull yourself up on a chain a couple of times over some rocks, but it's only for like 10 meters. You know? Yeah. Like, if I can do it, anybody can do it. So it's like, and then you get up there, there's loads of people doing rock climbing and stuff again. Like, nobody gives a shit because they're rock climbing. And then there's just this gigantic Buddha carved into the rock. It's only 50 feet.
Wow, I'd like to try that.
Great Major's us. Dorky. Chaps, thank you so much. Jane, good luck with thank you very much to Jane Nakata from Pod Launch. She's our podcast manager. Thank you very much to Laura Marushima, who's my assistant, who does all the logistics and stuff for this and has dealt with all the logistics for you guys in the background. And thank you both, Dee Hume and Neil Chapman, authors, directors, grotesque drag queens. Features, I should say. Grotesque, beautiful, spiritual, morbid, incredible darlings whose deepest value is decay. So it's been an absolute treasure to talk to you. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.